Hello and welcome back to Haywire34. Today is week 7. Wow, thank you so much for coming back again. And today we shall be listening to chapters 15, 16, 17 and 18, and I hope you enjoy them. Chapter 15. Dominic and Noah sat at the kitchen table, their eyes fixed on the door, hoping for any sign of their mother's arrival. They'd been sat there waiting since her last call, when she'd spoken to them.
"Mummy promised she'd be home soon,"
Noah said sadly.
"Where is she?"
"She'll be here soon," Charlotte told the fair-haired little boy.
"That's what she told us 2 hours ago,"
Dominic interjected. Noah's lower lip trembled, his eyes brimming with tears, while Dominic tried to put on a brave face, though his voice betrayed his worry. The anticipation of their mother's return had stretched out over the past 2 hours, each minute feeling like an eternity to the young boys.
"What if something's happened to her too?"
Noah began to cry. Penny's eyes filled with tears at the sight of the sobbing child. Quickly wiping them away, she rushed to where he was sat with his brother. Squatting down in front of both boys, Penny took their hands in hers. "Nothing has happened to your mother, and nothing will, I promise you that."
"So where is she?"
Dominic demanded, locking eyes with her. "She'll be here soon," Charlotte reiterated. "Sometimes time feels longer when we're waiting for someone we love," Sarah added. Dominic began to cry also.
"But it's been over 2 hours!"
Hector, approaching, picked Dominic up from where he was sitting. As he did so, a bolt of pain flashed through Hector's spine, making him wince. He held tight onto the dark-haired twin so that they were face to face. "Hospitals are busy places," Hector told him. "And as you remembered earlier, it takes a while to get everything sorted out, doesn't it?"
"Yes, but
you wouldn't want your mother to leave before she's made sure that Daddy's getting the best care possible, would you?"
"No,"
came the emphatic whisper. "So once she's done that, she'll be here," Hector assured Dominic. "Hey," Charlotte cried, "why don't we make welcome home cards for Mummy while we're waiting?" Dominic wriggled free from Hector, causing him to flinch with pain. He rushed back to his twin. They exchanged glances, their faces brightening slightly at the idea, and then, without any discussion, Dominic ran to fetch some crayons, while Noah foraged out some sheets of paper from a drawer in the sitting room that Mick used to store his paperwork. "We'll make some get-well cards too for Daddy," Dominic declared once they were set, and the brothers hurriedly began work on their cards, their tongues poking out in concentration. So focused were the twins on their card-making that they didn't see their mother come through the dining room and towards the kitchen. Gretchen looked emotionally and physically drained, but she forced a smile. "Where are my handsome boys?" she called out, pretending not to have seen her sons, heads down and hard at work making their cards. Her arrival took everyone by surprise. "Gretchen, Gretch, Mummy!" the different surprised voices called out to her. They all rushed to her, but Noah, followed by Dominic, got to Gretchen first. Throwing their arms about each leg, the twins hugged their mother tightly. "So you missed me then?" Gretchen joked.
"Yes," Noah said, beginning to cry. "I was worried that something had happened to you too."
"Ah," Gretchen murmured softly, stroking his head. "I'm sorry it took this long. I would have come back sooner if I could." Letting go of his mother, Dominic headed towards the sitting room and into the foyer. "Where's Daddy?" he called back to his mother. Taking Noah's hand, Gretchen went to Dominic. She squatted down in front of her sons as she told them he's still in the hospital.
"Why?"
Noah asked. "Because they're running tests."
"Still?"
Dominic frowned.
"Why is it taking so long?"
Exchanging worried glances, the rest of the group joined Gretchen and her sons in the foyer. Gretchen gazed up helplessly at them, and then facing her sons again replied, "Because they need to be sure what is wrong with him." "What do they think may be the matter?" Rupert inquired. Gretchen stood up. "I'll tell you later," she mouthed silently to her friends, the look on her face revealing the severity of the truth that she didn't want to tell her sons. Noticing Noah and Dominic watching their mother, Penny quickly changed the subject. "Hungry?" she asked Gretchen. "No." "Have you eaten at all?" Charlotte followed on. "No," Gretchen replied again. "You've got to eat something, Gretch," Sarah insisted. "Later," Gretchen conceded, "but I need to talk with these 2 brave men first," she added, tussling her son's hair with her fingers. Her friends took the cue, and excusing themselves, they filed out of the house with promises of, "We'll chat later, I'll call you later." "Oh, that reminds me," Penny remembered aloud, as she got to the front door ahead of Gretchen and the boys. "Auntie Bimbo's en route here. She insisted on making her own way because she needed to run some errands first." Gretchen looked relieved at the news. "I was intending to call her," she said. I need to know if she's free to stay with the boys, as I'll be in the hospital a lot. Aren't we going back to school? Noah asked with a hopeful glint in his eyes. Not for the moment. Yay! Her sons celebrated. We'll be able to go to the hospital with you to get Daddy, Dominic beamed. When the time comes. But first we need to have a chat before Auntie Bimbo gets here. Gretchen cast Penny a dejected glance as she spoke. Penny's gaze dropped to Dominic and Noah. Forcing a smile, she blew them a kiss, and then, closing the front door, she said a silent prayer for the Hanson family. End of chapter 15. Chapter 16. It was a difficult conversation, one that Gretchen had been dreading since she first received the news of Mick's condition. Gathering her strength, Gretchen sat down with Noah and Dominic at the wooden island in the kitchen, the afternoon sunlight casting a warm glow over their faces. She took a deep, audible breath, her hands clenched tightly on her lap. Noah and Dominic looked at each other and looked worried. I know today was very scary for you both, she began. Finding Daddy like that must have been really frightening. Noah nodded. I was so scared, Mummy. I didn't know what to do. Is Daddy going to be okay? Dominic asked firmly. Gretchen took another deep breath, struggling to keep her own emotions in check. Daddy is very sick. She swallowed hard. And the doctors are doing their best to help him. Her eyes filled with tears. We don't know what's going to happen, but we three need to stay strong for each other. And for him. Noah's lower lip trembled, while Dominic stared straight into his mother's eyes. Gretchen could see the fear and uncertainty in their eyes, and she knew that she had to be strong for them. Wiping away her tears, Gretchen cleared her throat. We'll have to take things one day at a time, okay? Noah nodded. Is Daddy going to die? Dominic asked, his voice crackling with fear. Gretchen took his hand. No, certainly not, and don't you dare entertain such a thought, she replied defiantly. What's wrong with Daddy? Noah piped up. They don't know yet, Gretchen fibbed. Dominic pulled a face. So how do you know he'll get better? I know, Gretchen insisted, her voice trembling. But how? Because they've run tests, Gretchen told her son. What tests? Dominic grilled his mother. Some for infection, others for his liver, heart, kidney, all his organs. Did Daddy pass them? Oh, God, Gretchen prayed silently. She was not prepared for this grilling. They weren't all bad, she said, trying to nuance the truth to allay their fears and to stop the questions. Dominic eyed her suspiciously. Oh, God, please, Gretchen cried again silently, tears pricking her eyes. She swallowed hard and blinked them back. I mustn't cry again, she commanded herself. Dominic sat silently watching his mother. I promise I'll keep you updated on Daddy's condition, Gretchen assured them, knowing that she would never tell them how bad things were. Forcing a smile, Gretchen opened her arms. Come here, she beckoned her sons. Noah needed no coaxing and ran to be comforted, while Dominic headed to the fridge. May I look after Daddy's guitar for him until he's better? He asked without looking back. Of course, darling, Gretchen replied, and taking Noah by the hand, she went to Dominic. Engulfing both boys in a group hug, she began to sob. We'll get through this, I promise you. All four of us. At her words, Dominic too began to cry. All for one and one for all, he cried, recalling the words that Mick used to shout as the four of them slew imaginary dragons and baddies in Highgate Wood during lockdown. Just then the doorbell rang. Praying silently that it was Auntie Bimbo, Gretchen released the boys from her embrace. Should we take a look? She suggested. Her sons seemed reluctant. Come on, she coaxed, and with a son's hand in each hand, Gretchen led the way to the front door. On opening the front door, Gretchen let out a sigh of relief. Auntie Bimbo, she cried. My daughter, came the concerned reply. As the two women embraced, Auntie Bimbo spied Dominic and Noah behind Gretchen. Why are you looking mournful? She scolded gently. Daddy's in hospital, Noah told her. He's very sick, Dominic added. I know, but it is well for him in Jesus' mighty name, she declared, and handed each boy a carrier bag. Noah peeped into the one in his hand. There were what looked like take-away containers of food. Bending his head, he sniffed the inside of the bag. The little boy's eyes lit up. Is there any chin-chin? He asked. Noah! His mother scolded. Leave him alone, Auntie Bimbo intercepted, ushering the twins ahead. Let's go and see. En route, Noah announced, Mummy said you're coming to stay with us. I did not, Gretchen cut in. You told Auntie Penny that I hoped Auntie Bimbo would be able to stay. I can, came the reply. Reaching forward, Gretchen squeezed the elderly lady's shoulder. She turned. Thank you, Gretchen mouthed, her eyes welling up again with tears. Auntie Bimbo admonished her with a frown. Gretchen dried the tears before they could trickle down. All the while, Dominic remained silently watching. As they arrived in the kitchen, Auntie Bimbo made a beeline for him. I hope you've been helping your father and have not just been here looking sad. Dominic gave her a puzzled look. How? How? She shouted theatrically, casting looks of exaggerated perplexity at Noah and Gretchen. How? Dominic repeated. Gretchen motioned to Auntie Bimbo that she was going upstairs and exited. Auntie Bimbo, grabbing her bag from where she'd placed it on a stool, put it on the counter. She began to rummage through the bag. After a moment, she retrieved a small paper bag. She poured the contents on the counter. Do you know what this is? She asked the boys as she waved round a red rosary. Is it a rosary? Noah answered. It looks like one of the ones Mummy has. Smart woman, Auntie Bimbo declared, and beckoned Dominic with her finger. This is how, she told him, placing the rosary in his hand. She beckoned Noah also and handed him a blue rosary. Noah crinkled his nose. How will this help Daddy? Auntie Bimbo frowned at him. Don't they teach you anything in catechism? She demanded. Catechism? Noah frowned. Jesus! Auntie Bimbo shouted. Have you not started catechism for your first Holy Communion? First Holy Communion? What's that? Dominic inquired. This is when us Catholics first received the body of Christ. Both boys grimaced at her words. The body of Christ in the Holy Communion, Auntie Bimbo elucidated. Pausing, she regarded the twins thoughtfully. How old are you? 8, they announced in unison. Oh, Auntie Bimbo exclaimed sadly. Don't worry, it is well. She began to scratch her neck as if in a quandary. She stopped. No idea, she started and then stopped. You boys, please help me unpack the bags onto the counter. I will be back. And with that, Auntie Bimbo headed towards the foyer. From there, she could be heard calling up to Gretchen. Can I see you a moment, please, my daughter? Sure, come up, Gretchen replied, and the elderly lady puffed her way slowly up the stairs to where she found Gretchen waiting at the top of the stairs. Auntie Bimbo's come up, I'll call you back, Gretchen said into her phone, and wiping away her tears, turned her attention to Auntie Bimbo. Come in, she told the elderly lady, and led the way into the bedroom. The situation is very bad, it seems, Auntie Bimbo began sadly. Yes, the doctors say there's only a 20% chance that Mick will survive. Jesus! Auntie Bimbo exclaimed, and made the sign of the cross. Gretchen sat down on her bed and motioned for Auntie Bimbo to do the same, but she remained standing and tentative. You're a Catholic, aren't you? She asked cautiously. Gretchen nodded. And you are practicing? Yes, Gretchen replied, a wry smile edging across her face. I was actually on my way to Mass when it happened. You see, on your way to Mass, Auntie Bimbo shook her head sadly. That's how Satan operates. He likes to test our faith. She paused. But we shall not be overcome, she declared, casting Gretchen a probing glance. No, we shall not, Gretchen smiled and pulled a cream-coloured rosary from her pocket. I don't know how many of these I've said today, she said, beginning to cry again. Sitting down beside her on the bed, Auntie Bimbo comforted Gretchen. The number does not matter, my dear, she told Gretchen. We shall continue and we shall prevail. It is well for Mick. He is healed in Jesus' mighty name, and we shall see his healing manifested in Jesus' mighty name. Amen, Gretchen whispered. Auntie Bimbo smiled. Are your parents religious? Gretchen began to laugh. Definitely not. They don't believe in God, much less religion. Auntie Bimbo quickly made the sign of the cross as if to counter the fact. So, how come you're a Catholic? My friend from school, Magda, her family are Catholic and very religious. Whenever I spent a weekend at theirs when I was younger, we'd always go to Mass on Sunday. I'm not quite sure why or how, but something resonated. And one day I decided to become a Catholic, and here I am, still a Catholic. You're blessed, my dear. You are very blessed indeed, Auntie Bimbo declared. Then eyeing Gretchen timidly, she asked, Why are the boys not Catholic? They are. They're baptized. Auntie Bimbo looked shocked. But they don't know their rosary. Gretchen sighed. It's my fault. Came the unconvinced response. Mick is a cradle Catholic, but he's not practicing, Gretchen informed her. Why not? I don't know, it's just not his thing, I guess. Not his thing? Auntie Bimbo scoffed. What kind of nonsense is that? He's a Catholic. Gretchen laughed. She'd always loved Auntie Bimbo's direct and no-nonsense approach. He didn't stop me from taking the boys to church, she explained. It was just difficult when they were babies, taking twins to church on my own. As they grew, it became the habit that I would go to Mass and they would stay home with Mick. Auntie Bimbo looked unimpressed. Anyway, my dear, she said with resignation, we cannot change the past, but we can change the future. She regarded Gretchen with pleading eyes. Please, my daughter, if I'm going to be staying here, I would like us all to be united in prayer. It is the only way Mick will make it. Please, my daughter, let me teach the boys to pray. Oh, God, I wish you would, Gretchen replied as the tears began to flow once more. It's the only hope I have left. That's why I've been saying so many rosaries. End of chapter 16. Chapter 17. Previously. Penny and Hector were stepping through their front door when Penny's phone began to ring. Hey, Penny answered tenderly. It's Gretch, she quietly told Hector. Thank you so much to you and Hector for coming over to be with the boys, Gretchen began. Come on, Gretch, you don't need to thank us for that. How are they? Not too chipper. That's understandable, darling. It's rough on all of you. Particularly Dominic, Gretchen stressed. He holds things in like Mick. How are you? Gretchen caught her breath. I'll live. I know you'll live, but how are you? Crap, Pen. Silently, Gretchen tried to compose herself. They say he only has a 20% chance of survival. No! Penny gasped quietly. That can't be right. He was fine last night. Apparently not. I don't understand. He seemed all right. He's got sepsis, Penny. Sepsis? Penny shouted, startling Hector, who was leading the way upstairs to their bedroom. He turned. Sepsis? How? Penny shrugged at him and repeated the question. How? From his burst appendix. Burst appendix? Penny exclaimed. Yes. According to the colorectal consultant, from the state of his insides, it didn't burst today. Oh, my God, poor Mick! Can you imagine the pain he must have been in these last few days? Gretchen said, beginning to cry. I should have guessed that something wasn't right. How? Penny asked. Mick underplays things, so I should have known that something was seriously wrong when he kept crying out in pain in the taxi on our way back from yours last Sunday. Last Sunday? Penny cried. That's a week ago, Gretch. So they reckon he went to Nigeria with a burst appendix? Or it burst while he was there? But Hector and Rupert would have noticed that he was in extreme pain, surely, Penny surmised. And we would have noticed when we're all round at ours the day they got back. Not necessarily, Gretchen explained. Mick hides things well. It's only on reflection in the hospital that I remember that I saw him wincing a few times since his return from Nigeria. Actually, now you mention it, I think I may have too, Penny recalled. I see you and Hector do that so often that I didn't think anything of it. But it wasn't even like a proper wince, Penny added. I know, but he was clearly in a lot of pain. Just then Hector stopped walking. They were on the last step. Penny tapped him, but Hector remained stationary. I can't lift my leg, he whispered. Quickly switching the phone to hands-free, Penny handed it to Hector to hold, while signalling for him to sit down. I can imagine poor Mick, she told Gretch, and bent forward to help Hector lift his legs onto the landing. It would have been all so different if he'd said something, Gretchen said, referring to Mick. As she tried to straighten up, Penny's back went into spasms. She froze on the spot. My back's gone, she mouthed to Hector with a flinch. Penny? Sorry, I almost dropped the phone, Penny fibbed. You're all right. I'm fine. Your voice sounds a little shaky. It's probably from me trying to catch the phone, Penny fibbed again, as she and Hector locked eyes. It would have been all so different if Mick had said something earlier, Gretchen reiterated. Hold on, I'll ask Hector if he did, Penny replied, bringing Hector into the conversation, while she quietly rummaged in her bag for some diazepam to ease the spasm. Did Mick say anything about not feeling well when you were in Nigeria? Penny asked Hector, as she popped 2 tablets into her mouth and grimaced at the taste. No, he mentioned feeling a little tired, but we all were. Typical, Gretchen retorted. And he looked so well, Hector added. Exactly, Gretchen agreed, but I suppose it could have been the adrenaline of the trip. I don't know. She fell silent for a moment.
I just wish I'd put 2 and 2 together and realised that the wince was connected to his so-called indigestion, she concluded. And then what? Penny asked. I would have made him go to the hospital. And if he'd refused, I'd have insisted. There's nothing you could have done, Gretch. Please stop blaming yourself. Gretchen didn't respond. Gretch? You should have seen him, Penny, she said, beginning to sob. He went into septic shock so quickly, and everything just went haywire. Poor dear Mick. So what's happening now? He's still in theatre, so we wait. He'll pull through, Penny winced. I'm not sure about that, Penny, Gretchen admitted. It's touch and go right now. I know, but the odds are more with him than against him. Thank God he was in hospital when it happened. You saved his life, Gretch. I didn't. Charlotte did. She called the ambulance. But it was upon your insistence that they took him in, Gretch. They're still operating, Gretchen whispered, as if she couldn't hear Penny. He'll be fine, Gretch, Penny insisted. Mick's made it this far. He's going to make it all the way. He's got his waste management plant to build, after all. Yes, Gretchen replied listlessly. I'm glad he had some good news before this. So am I. Hang in there, Gretchen, Hector cut in, handing Penny back the phone before quietly heaving himself onto his knees. This is our fella Mick the Cutlass we're talking about. He'll pull through. I really pray so, Hector. She paused again. I'm glad you both got to live large on your whiskey last night. And we shall for many years to come, Hector replied, catching hold of the banister and hoisting himself to his feet. I pray so, and I promise not to complain, Gretchen vouched. Complain? We'll be downing it with them, Penny chimed in, handing Hector back the phone again so that she could use his other hand and the banister for support as she straightened up. I'll hold you both to it, Hector smiled as he felt his legs loosening up. You won't have to, Gretchen said, and I can't thank you all enough for your support and being there for the boys today. We're here always for you, Mick, and the boys, Hector responded. Thank you. Try and get some rest now, Gretchen, Hector encouraged her. We'll call later to arrange how we can be of best help for you all. I'd really appreciate that, Hector. Thanks. Penny, may I have a quiet word with you, please? Sure, Penny replied, taking her phone back from Hector, who gave her the thumbs up and headed to the bathroom, while Penny headed to their bedroom. I'm off hands-free now, Penny told Gretchen. Do you remember our conversation a week ago? Gretchen asked softly. Oh, please, Gretch, not that again. I told you on Friday that I was sorry for what I said to you in that conversation, and now I'm especially sorry for having told you what if something happened to Mick. I'm so scared, Penny. What if he doesn't make it? What if he does die? He's not going to die, Gretch. I know you're still cross with God about your parents' death, Pen, but please pray for Mick. I already have been, and I'm still at it. Thank you. Please pray for the boys also. I am. Oh, God, the boys, Gretchen sobbed. It'll destroy them if they lose Mick. Oh, Dominic, he so loves and needs his father. Noah too. Gretchen was ranting and sobbing so hard that Penny couldn't interrupt. Oh, Mother Mary, please intercede for us, she prayed. Oh, Jesus, the boys need Mick. Please, God, take me instead. Stop that! Penny shouted at her. Imagine if the boys could hear you like this. Stop it! They need you both, and particularly you right now, Gretch. Mick needs you. You're all they have. Fat lot of use I am. They just need to know you're there, Gretch. I'm a total mess, Penny. You're not. You're the strongest person I know. I couldn't put on a brave face when the boys and I were having the chat about Mick. You're not expected to. I couldn't even lie well enough to convince Dominic that everything will be okay. Please, Gretch, Penny pleaded. Stop beating yourself up about everything. You're doing amazingly, especially under the circumstance, and Mick will be okay. I pray so, Gretchen whispered. At that moment, Auntie Bimbo's voice rang out. Can I see you a moment, please, my daughter? It's Auntie Bimbo. She wants a word with me. Hold on. Sticking her head out of her bedroom door, Gretchen shouted down to Auntie Bimbo. Sure, come up. I'll let you go, Penny said. No, not yet. Wait till she gets up here, Gretchen told her friend, and then fell silent for a moment. Seconds later she began to speak. Penny, Gretchen resumed, before you, I'm making this vow to God. If he spares Mick's life, I'm really going to change. Didn't you mean it when you said it on Friday? Penny teased, trying to lighten the conversation. I did, with all my heart, Penny. Oh, please, God, Gretchen pleaded. I just want the chance to be the wife that Mick deserves. The best wife in the world. Steady on, Penny interrupted playfully.
We don't want the standard going too high and shaming the rest of us. Thank you very much.
I'm serious, Penny.
I know, darling, Penny smiled, but you're almost perfect already, and Mick and the rest of us love you just as you are. Gretchen checked the clock on her phone.
They're taking so long, she remarked, beginning to panic. I hope nothing's wrong.
Stop worrying, Penny scolded her. It's better they take their time than they rush through the operation and make mistakes.
You're right, thanks,
Gretchen agreed. Hearing Auntie Bimbo's wheezing approaching the top of the stairs, she headed out of the bedroom to meet her.
Auntie Bimbo's come up, I'll call you back,
Gretchen told Penny, and quickly wiping away her tears, she ended the call. Hector returned to the bedroom as Penny finished her conversation with Gretchen. Her expression was sombre.
Mick will pull through,
he said, trying to console her. Gretchen said the doctors think his chance of survival is 20%. The colour drained from Hector's face.
20%? That's not good.
I know, Penny concurred. That's why she's so devastated. I'm glad you told her that we're here for them. She's going to need a lot of support from all of us. Hector nodded, his mind racing as he tried to process the news. Poor Gretchen, he sympathised. She's dealing with so much right now.
And those boys, they're still so young.
I know. Gretchen is particularly worried about Dominic. If he breaks, so will Noah. He's the stronger of the two. I'm not sure about that, Hector disagreed. I watched them today. Noah's more resilient and bounces back quicker. Well, thank God there are two of them. They can bolster each other. Hector nodded again absent-mindedly. He seemed so well in Nigeria.
He was always the last man standing.
Ah, it goes to show, doesn't it? He added, glancing up at Penny.
This could have been any of us, he surmised.
I know. I've been thinking just that. I'd rather our pain conditions over this any time. Pain conditions don't preclude us from other issues, Penny. I know. So we really have to think seriously about the future. I'd be happier knowing that you'll be well taken care of if anything happens to me. Anything could happen to either or both of us, as we often experience, Penny reasoned. We really need to get our ducks in line and cover all eventualities, not just the financial, Hector. Can you imagine if we both became crippled? Don't talk like that. It's a possibility, Penny persisted. You saw what just happened to us on the stairs. It could have ended very badly, Hector. I know, but I can't bear the thought of it. But we have to. I know, but first things first. We should do something for Gretchen and the boys. Their needs are here right now. Absolutely, but so are ours. Being there for them doesn't prevent us from thinking seriously about our physical future and trying to prepare for all possible eventualities. Sure, Hector agreed, as Penny cast him a concerned and disbelieving look. It had been more than 20 years since the onset of his pain condition, and yet Hector was still finding it hard to accept its day-to-day limitations. End of Chapter 17. Chapter 18. Sarah, your phone! It's Gretchen! Rupert shouted to his wife, who was in the kitchen, foraging in the fridge for something to eat. I'm coming! She shouted, her mouth full of cake, which she was trying not to spit out as she spoke. With his wife's phone still in hand, Rupert headed towards one of the built-in shelves in their sitting room that housed their collection of books on many subjects, especially sailing, history, and literature. The room was filled with natural light that streamed through large windows, illuminating the large and sumptuous-looking cream sofa and two armchairs that were arranged around a coffee table. The walls, painted a soft baby blue colour that was reminiscent of the sea and sky, were adorned with artwork from Sarah and Rupert's travels. These, coupled with the antique globe that sat in one corner, reinforced the couple's wanderlust, love of sailing, and desire to explore the world. The fireplace, with its mantel jam-packed with both of their family photographs and small mementos from Sarah's childhood, brought a sense of warmth and intimacy to the room. With the phone continuing to ring in his hand, Rupert was distracted and forgot what he'd wanted from the bookshelf. He glanced down at the phone. "Sarah!" he called out again, just as she appeared at the sitting-room door. Rupert answered the call. "Gretchen, how are you?" he asked tenderly. She laughed sardonically. "I know, sorry, stupid question." Sarah rushed to his side. Taking her phone, she put the call on loudspeaker and went towards the sofa. "Gretch!" "Hello, Sarah. I called to say thank you to you both for coming round today to cheer the boys up when I was in the hospital." "It's the least we could do," Rupert said, joining his wife on the sofa. "Yes," Sarah agreed, "and we're happy to come back later if you have to go back to the hospital." "How's Mick?" Rupert cut in. "Not good. They're still operating, so I won't know until they're finished. Should we come back over so you can be there for them when they finish? Sarah offered once more. Thanks, Auntie Bimbo's here now, and she'll be staying. What's the operation for? Rupert asked. He's got sepsis for a burst appendix and went into septic shock. They've had to go in to clean out the mess from the appendix and sort out his colon. No, Rupert gasped. Jesus Christ! And all in less than 24 hours? No, apparently his appendix burst a few days ago. A few days ago? But that was when we were in Nigeria. Or maybe the day before you went, Gretchen replied. But he was on fine form the whole week, Rupert said, as if to himself. And last night too, he recalled. I know, Gretchen sighed. My Mick is very good at pretending everything's all right, and I should have remembered and done something about it. There's nothing you could have done, Gretchen, Rupert consoled her. What's his colon got to do with all this? Sarah piped up. There's a piece of the burst appendix stuck on it, and due to its toxicity, they need to remove that bit of the colon and then reconnect or redirect the colon. I can't remember which, but the colon needs sorting out. I'm so sorry, Gretch, Sarah said, staring vacantly at Rupert as he gasped. Wow. Suddenly composing himself, Rupert added, I'll give you a lift back to the hospital when you're ready to go. Thanks, Rupert, but I'll take a taxi. I need to process it all. You sound exhausted, Sarah noted. I am, in every way possible, Gretchen admitted. Have a rest, darling. We'll talk again later. And please, anything you need, no matter the time, please let us know, Gretchen. You and Mick and the boys are family, Rupert added. His words choked Gretchen. Thank you, Rupert, she said, beginning to cry. I appreciate all of you and your kindness to us. Thank you, she petered out and hurried off the phone to cry in private. She's over-processing, Sarah surmised as the call ended. She's been like that since our uni days. She's doing remarkably well, considering, Rupert sympathised. Yes, poor Gretch. But right now she needs more to be than to do. Rupert cast a perplexed glance. What are you talking about? Gretch has the tendency to face everything with an action plan, which I don't think would be wise at this time. She needs to go more with the flow, bend a little. Oh, never mind, Sarah capitulated on noticing that Rupert was deep in thought and not listening. I'll nip round to see her in the morning with Penny. Rupert and Sarah sat in silence for a moment, until, still looking deep in thought, Rupert spoke. Life is so unpredictable, he began. There's no preparing for it. No, there isn't, Sarah agreed. There we all were last night, Mick and Gretchen looking like they'd turned a corner, and then boom, he's in hospital, with his life in the balance. Rupert shook his head. He was noticeably devastated by the conversation they'd just had with Gretchen. Turning, he looked at Sarah, his expression serious and ominous. She stared back at him. I have something to tell you, he confessed. I know, Sarah replied, her eyes beginning to well up with tears, as all her fears crescendoed into resignation. Rupert's eyes crinkled as if in question. You do? Mm-hmm, she nodded, as the tears streamed down her face. Who is she? Or is it a he? What? Rupert spluttered. Who is she? Who's who? The person with whom you're having the affair. What affair? Gretchen flashed him an impatient glare. I know, Rupert. I've tried to pretend that it's not true, but it is, isn't it? What? I saw you with her outside Binto's, she fibbed. You saw me with her outside Binto's? Rupert looked perplexed. You were in London on the Wednesday night that I went out with Gretchen and Penny. I saw you with her. Rupert bowed his head and started laughing. I'm not having an affair. That was a headhunter. I've lost my job. You've lost your job? Sarah asked, staring at him in disbelief. When? The Tuesday before you saw me. I saw some people in Switzerland, and then I flew back on that Wednesday to meet with a headhunter who got in touch with me when the news hit. So why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you come home until late on Friday? I needed to think, and I was scared. Of what? Telling you. I knew you'd be devastated, especially as the offers I'd been getting had been to relocate to Brazil. Brazil? Sarah shouted. Rupert nodded. I knew with your job, your parents, your dislike for change, it would be a big ask, especially with Brazil being so far. Sarah listened silently. And if you didn't move to Brazil with me, would our marriage survive? So who sent the WhatsApp message on our way to Windlesham? Which message? Looking forward to round 2? Sarah hissed, eyeing him as if she'd caught him in a fib. Standing up, Rupert retrieved his phone from his jeans pocket and began to scroll through his messages. Suddenly he began to laugh. It was someone with whom I'd had a preliminary chat in Switzerland, and we were scheduling for a second chat. Sarah looked unconvinced. So where did you go the Monday morning after Windlesham? Switzerland, and then I flew back to Heathrow to catch the flight to Nigeria with Mick and Hector. Why the rush to Switzerland if you've lost your job? To finalise the financing for the waste management plant for Nigeria. Sitting back down, he showed her the message she'd seen, and then, enlarging the profile picture, he showed her the sender. Whoops, Sarah cringed, recoiling with embarrassment. But no, Rupert cut her off. He was indignant. How could you ever think that? I'm sorry, she said, snuggling up to him. Please forgive me. I can't believe you would think such a thing of me. He frowned. Avoiding his gaze, Sarah changed the subject. So, about the job situation. Not Brazil, please, she implored him. I already turned them down. Anything else on the horizon? Rupert stared back at his wife. He looked hurt. How could you jump to the conclusion that I was having an affair without first asking me about what you thought you saw? He demanded. I'm sorry. Eyeing Sarah angrily, Rupert returned to the topic of work. The waste management plant and future plants was a fantastic and unexpected option, but with Mick's, something else will come up, Sarah interrupted, pulling him gently to her. There is something in Switzerland that came up when I was in Nigeria, but after what's happened to Mick, I'm going to turn it down. Why? Can you imagine if something happened to me in Switzerland? The headache for you with the back and forth. It'd be too much, Sarah. And besides, he added, this whole Mick thing has got me thinking. I don't want us living apart anymore. I've made enough money with or without the plant. It's time to regroup and focus on the important things. Sarah smiled. I've been thinking along those lines too. Oh? There's got to be some purpose in my life, she told him. I want to give something back. But you already do, Rupert reminded her. I know, but I want to do more. Any thoughts how? Yes. The free lessons I give have gone down so well. I want to retrain as a teacher and see if I can get a job at one of the nearby comprehensive schools as a maths teacher. Wow, that's major. It's what I want. It won't be easy. I know. Rupert regarded his wife lovingly. I love you more than you'll ever know, he told her. And I you, she replied, and kissed him tenderly. Clip-Clop was right. About? He refused to believe that you were having an affair. You told him? Yes, she answered, squirming into the nook of the sofa. Is there anybody you didn't tell? Charlotte. Rupert shook his head in disbelief. Next time, talk to me first, please. And the same goes for you, Sarah retorted. Touché, Rupert agreed. I'm glad we had this conversation. It's a huge weight off my mind. Me too, Sarah smiled. Should we take a look at the numbers and figure out how to make it all work? Not tonight, Rupert decided. I've been so tense these last couple of weeks, and today's been the worst. All I want to do now is relax, have a nice glass of wine or two, and snuggle up with my wonderful wife. Any objections? No objections, Sarah confirmed with a happy smile. End of chapter 18. Oof, quite a few tense chapters those were, eh? Poor Gretchen and the boys. Wow, I don't envy her having to break the news to the boys. That's where one of my questions lies. What do you think about how she handled the situation with the boys? Would you have done the same? Or do you believe she should have told them less? Or do you think she should have shared more with them? What are your thoughts? I'd love to know in the comments section, please. And the friends. You know, when people are in hospital or really, really ill, we always think of the effect on their family, but we never think about the friends. But clearly, with Mick and Gretchen's friends, it's having a big effect on their lives. So, how would you react? Do you think it would have such an impact on your life if you were one of their friends? I'd love to know. And thanks again for coming back week and week and week and week and week after week. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to us meeting again next week. Until then, take care and lots of love. Bye-bye.